Hey guys, it's Dustin. I want to talk about the perfect Google Ads campaign structure. So a lot of people structure campaigns in a lot of different ways. I get this question a lot whenever I do any kind of coaching sessions or just chatting with the boys about Google Ads. That's how lame we are sometimes. When it comes to campaign structure, it's super important. And there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. I wouldn't say that there's like a totally right or wrong way. I think there's a lot of different ways you can approach it and a lot of different opinions. I'm going to share mine and also share what I see is the most common kind of secondary way to get there. And I'm actually going to do it with a new tool that we built in-house for our own purposes. That'll be a great demonstration of like the different structures and how you can arrange things. So I'm just doing that to kind of show it off a little bit. But anyway, right now, I'm going to just quickly generate a campaign. This would be for, let's pretend like we've got a fictitious tree trimmer. And let's go with tree service, and we'll just choose a couple different services. So I'm just going to trim these out. These are basically services, keyword combinations. I'm not going to get into all that. This is really not about the tool. It's more about the output. So let's go ahead and do this. Actually, make sure I've got it in, we'll go with STAG mode. That's what I see the most common, or some attempt to be STAG mode. And we'll just use an exact and phrase. So basically what we get is, in this particular case, you've got 84 keywords because we've got exact and phrase match. We've got 9 ad groups and basically one campaign. All right. So this is a very common way I see campaign structure. Now, I wouldn't say it's even this clean and perfect a lot, but it's better than having one ad group, and it's called ad group 1. If you know what I'm talking about, if you know, you know. But that's when you just got one thing, you throw everything in there, and you're hoping that Google will match the keyword search term with your ad. And then a lot of times if you're doing that, you got broad match in there, and it's just a total nightmare. So this is one step up, and I'll explain the benefits of what this is after I explain what it is. I'll explain kind of the benefits of doing it this way. But this is where we've got ad groups for tree removal, tree trimming, stump grinding. And then I don't usually see this, but this is how we like to do it. We also break out our geolocations into their own ad groups. And we don't actually use this format specifically very often, which is the one we use next. But this is a good second option if you don't want to do a lot of manual work. But I'll show you what we do and why we do it in just a minute. So here we'd have like tree removal, and we have all of our keywords related to tree removal. So tree removal, emergency tree removal service, company, near me. Sometimes we always break out near me in its own ad group for us. In this case, it's just kind of thrown in there because it's a stag. And you can see that you've got, in this particular case, emergency tree removal service. So it's got a pretty relevant headline for tree removal. This doesn't always have to be emergency. That's what we've got here. And you can have, your ad descriptions also be about tree removal, tree service or tree removal. So in that particular case. So it does help in some ways because now you've got very thematic. So stag mode is like single theme ad groups. These are all tree removal themed keywords, even though there's variations here. And you can have an ad that is, going to have a decent relevance because it's still going to be about tree removal. You may have to figure out how to add those variations, like the whole emergency thing, or this is a pretty simple one, but sometimes it could be different services that have their own kind of variants. We could look at that, maybe another video. But for right now, the idea is that this is pretty well themed together. And then you could take them to a tree removal page, okay? Same with tree trimming, same idea, emergency, company. Stump grinding is a little bit different. Stump grinding, there's no emergency related stuff here. This one's a lot safer. You're only going to really look for that in one way, okay? And then we've got our versions with the location. And the reason why we break this out, which I'll show you the other way in a minute, is because I tend to find that keywords with locations or with near me tend to perform better than keywords without. I'm not saying it's always like that, but a lot of times it is. And when you just have ad group 1 or you throw them all together, one of the biggest reasons why we structure campaigns that we do is so we can see the data. So we can see that Miami ad groups are doing better than the non-version of it, as an example, or the near me ad groups are doing better than the non-version of it, as an example. And this is a very real case. And one of the biggest things that people miss out on is visibility. So they build campaigns and they don't think about visibility. And so that looks pretty rough. And usually it's eight hours of filtering through search terms, and you can't control. Let's just say, for example, tree removal Miami performs better than just tree removal. Well, if they're all in the same ad group, then it kind of limits how you can bid on it if you're using smart bidding. If you're using manual CPC, you can still bid on the keyword level, but you can't really handle negatives the same way either if you had to. And again, these are kind of really simple examples. So this wouldn't come into play quite as much, but I do find that in order to get the data that Miami is doing better than just the regular, you have to go into your search terms, filter by keywords that don't contain the geo, and just do all that when you could just literally build it that way. So it's just like, it's already kind of like visibility, reporting, insights, and control, because you can have your negative keywords and your bids at the ad group level if you're using smart bidding built in from the start. Okay. So that's why we do it that way. Then you've got your other location here. So we may not do this for every single possible location a person services. We may only do this for the top few or whatever, or the bigger ones that have search volume. And we may just create these over time, whatever. But that's kind of the rough idea. It's just having it, again, single themed and then broken out that way. Now, the way I like to do it, which you're going to think is probably crazy, and it's for the same reason, visibility and control. I'll just flip one switch here in this tool, and you'll see now we've got 42 ad groups. And I know what most of you will probably say, that's way too much. And I agree, it probably is, but let me explain why. So now we've got the same tree removal ad group we had before. It's literally just tree removal. And all this headline could use some work. It's literally just the word. It's very specific to the search term, okay? And the landing page could be too. Emergency tree removal ad is literally emergency tree removal. Of course, we have other variations of this. That's not the point. The point is it's going to be, the quality score on that's going to be a lot better. And the other thing about it is, and I'll just kind of look through this list. Basically, you can see is we just took those keywords that were all matched together and we broke them out to their own ad groups. And we did the same thing. We saw our tree removal Miami. And then we even go one level deeper to have the same version as this with the geo, okay, or with the near me or whatnot. And the idea, once again, is some of these will never get impressions, and that is okay. Because guess what? How long does it take for me to do this? Not very long. And I don't, you don't pay per keyword and you don't pay per ad group, you don't pay per ad. And if you can systemize how fast you're able to build them and make them relevant, then it's not like you have to pay for the time either. And I know a lot of people get very hung up on, oh my God, but there's all these things that are not generating impressions and clicks. Like I said, you can always delete them later and you never know if they're going to at some other point. But if you have that visibility there, then you can see what's going on. And it doesn't really affect, in my opinion, like again, this is all in one campaign in this particular case. Does that mean we would always build it that way if we have different targeting we need to do or targets or whatnot? But it's not like this is going to be a big issue for Google either. At this point, we're not negativing the word emergency from this ad group, right? That's where you could potentially lose some impressions. We wouldn't do it unless there's a lot of emergency traffic just creeping over here for some reason, then we might want to do that. But this gives us visibility and simplicity, and maybe not simplicity in the number of things, but you know exactly what's in each ad group. It performs, you can tell exactly how it performs. So how does our Miami ad groups perform? Oh, this is the emergency thing in Miami that's really popping. That's where we're getting a lot of our leads. Then we can do something different here, not just have it in one big old ad group. Okay, so that is one of the main reasons, and it's mostly related to visibility. So like in this case, this is why we built this tool, because doing this manually, of course, it did take a bit of time. But now we have a great starting point to just be able to do it, to deal with like, oh, what happens if we have a long, character load in the ad? It looks like we have no issues here. That's great. But sometimes we do, and we can fix all that stuff in here, and we can, create ads, and we can edit stuff. So now I'm kind of showing off the tool a little bit, spin headlines, tokens and things like that to add something in there if we wanted, whatever. The idea is that, we can take this, what used to be a very manual process, and make, like you saw, we went from SKAGs to STAGs like pretty quick. We can flip over and get new ad copy and save stuff, and then we just generate it. Right now it's just going to get an export into editor, and then we're working on the Google Ads API integration to push it right into Google Ads. But it's pretty simple. I mean, if I don't want to do that, I want to do stag mode, I just switch it over here, and now I've got my 9 ad groups. I got my big old stuff thrown together, which might be fine for most use cases and most people. So coming back to structure, whether you use a tool, you do it manually, whatever you want to do. The big thing you want to consider is not just what I always hear people say is, I'll still get the traffic if we just throw it all together. And I agree with you. You could just have ad group 1 and you could still get the traffic. The issue comes where you cannot see the performance for the parts of the ad group or the keywords or the search terms. And even if you can see them, which most people are they don't even take the time to do that, there's very little you can do about it some of the time, besides maybe adjusting a keyword level bid. Then maybe you could do that. But aside from that, there's not much else you can do if you've got them all thrown together. So it creates more work and more problems for you later. And I would prefer, and this is why we've done it this way since we've been in business, to a fault sometimes, I would prefer to put a little bit more upfront work into something that's going to save us time and effort for the rest of the life of that account. If it takes an extra hour or two, which is what it used to take, now it's way faster, but it saves me, let's just call it 30 minutes 30 minutes a week, or maybe let's just call it an hour a month to make it simple. And we have clients for years on end. How much time does that save you? Not to mention the visibility and the performance. This actually tends to help us perform better because you're not pissing away a bunch of money on bad stuff. You have more control over your negatives and your bids. You can scale what's working a lot easier when things are broken out. And I'm not necessarily taking away from people who don't do it that way. I'm just telling you why I do it that way, and that's my opinion. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And if you're worried about, the perfect way to build things out, if you're happy with the way things are going, keep doing it. I mean, that's great. I'm just sharing what we're doing and why, because I do feel like a lot of people don't put enough thought into the structure of their campaigns, and they focus on trying to optimize. And I look at it like driving a car down the highway with like tires that have they're half full of air, or they're missing a third of the air in the tires, right? Like, sure, you can get to the destination and you could just hit the gas harder if you want to go faster, but wouldn't it be better just to fill up the tires? And in my opinion, a good structure is like having your air full of tires in your car. So when you cruise down the highway, it's a smooth ride. You're not always having to feel the bumps in the road, and it's just, you're spending a lot more on gas because you just can't get there. That's what tends to happen is you spend more on gas, which is bad clicks, bad search terms, overpaying, things like that, and time, labor to manage the campaign, and not enough time enjoying the fruits of your labor, which is getting leads and getting traffic that you want and controlling the bad stuff that you don't want. So anyway, hope that was helpful. Let me know what you think as far as structure. This is a big debate. Everybody has their own thing. I'd love to hear how you structure campaigns. So wherever you're seeing this, post somewhere, and love to have that chat. Take care. God bless.